Hello and welcome back to my channel. I want to thank you, the subscribers, the listeners, the viewers, for being a part of this channel and especially a part of my Storytime mystery series. I sincerely and genuinely have a lot of fun reading these stories to you. And so I think it's time to begin. We are on the 6th part of our series, and the story is called The Case of the Missing 38 Smith and Wesson. I hope you enjoy. Gary Westlake made a mental note to find out who had been the last to use number 9119. The car had come to life when he turned on the ignition, and he hated that. One by one, he turned off the radio, the windshield wipers, the fan, the rear defrost, while he waited for the engine to warm. Whoever it was, he noted with even more annoyance, had even left the glove compartment door hanging open. All this along with an accumulation of junk on the passenger seat. Gum wrappers, a ratty toque, certainly not a regulation item, but sometimes the highway patrol used them, a flashlight that should have been returned to its holder under the dash, and what appeared to be a forgotten, half-completed accident report. With one hand, Gary scooped up the mess and tossed it into the back seat. "There's one slob in this department," he said out loud, "who's gonna be very sorry the chief had to use a patrol car today." Gary had a fully developed passion for order and neatness. He began to plan, even enjoy the substance of the anticipated chew-out, as he clamped the transmitter switch twice. "Go ahead!" Central Dispatch, at least, was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. "Westlake here. I'm exiting the lot right now. Expect to return by 3 p.m. if there's..." "Chief, we were just going to all call you. Lewinsky wants you, says it's urgent." Gary toyed for a moment with ignoring the request. New people on patrol had a way of failing to separate true urgency from simple impatience. Besides, he had a throbbing toothache. "Patch her through," he replied tiredly. He knew he couldn't entertain the thought of ignoring a call from a rookie. Almost instantly, the young policewoman was in contact. "Sir? Chief Westlake?" Gary hated Lewinsky's habit of speaking in the interrogative. It made her sound like a teenager, which, come to think of it, he realized she almost was. She was only 21. "This is Chief Westlake." He tried not to sound gruff, but his tooth really hurt. "Ah, Chief, the Packers case? I think I have something. You know the gun, the missing gun? A 38 Smith and Wesson, right? I'm holding a guy here. You better, do you want to see for yourself?" The Packers case was an unsolved murder. The first murder, solved or unsolved, in the 7 years since Gary had become chief. One of the missing links was the murder weapon. Ballistic information had told them what it was, but that was as far as anyone on the case had been able to get. "Slow down, Lewinsky," Gary said as much to himself as to the young woman on patrol. He could feel excitement in spite of himself, in spite of his aching tooth and the mess in 9119. "First of all, where are you?" Lewinsky was not about to slow down. "On King Road? East? I'm at..." The voice grew faint, then loud again. In front of 414, okay? 414 King Road." "All right, hang on." Gary took a deep breath and thought for a moment. A 38 Smith and Wesson was hardly something out of the ordinary. If it was only an unlicensed gun, then he'd be smarter to let Lewinsky handle it herself. Good experience. But then... Lewinsky, are you all right? Do you need help? No, sir, I'm fine. I have I have a possible arrest in the car. There's no trouble, okay? You want I should bring him in? No. Yes. Wait a minute, Lewinsky. Gary's toothache, which had been coming and going in waves, was gathering strength for another surge. He waited, but it didn't come. Lewinsky, the Smith and Wesson. What's fishy about it? Gary wondered if he, too, wasn't beginning to speak in the interrogative. No license, Gary almost groaned. I stopped him a few minutes ago, right? Taillight out, and I think I smell booze, right? Against his better judgment, Gary answered, right. So, routine check. I opened the trunk, and there it is in the trunk, the gun. It occurred to Gary that Lewinsky was not only speaking in the interrogative. She also spoke entirely in the present tense. What makes you think it has anything to do with the Packers case? He asked. Smith and Wesson, right? Lewinsky, we've been through that. The wave of ache had only been teasing before. Now it had arrived in force. Yeah, but that's it. The guy says he just found it. Like, this morning? Were it anything but the Packers case, Gary would have made a second mental note to have Lewinsky take speech therapy. Instead, he responded, Found it? Where? You know the construction on King Road? At the edge of town? On the east? Toward Nobleton? Just at the bottom of the hill? Lewinsky, I know where it is. One more question on top of the toothache would have tipped him over the edge. Well, the guy says he saw it lying in one of the big puddles there, right? Says he figures somebody ditched it, so he picks it up. Says he hasn't had time to turn it in. Okay? Gary heard himself say, and you've, got him in your car now, right? Whatever Lewinsky's response, he didn't hear it. He was staring in shock at himself in the rearview mirror. Lewinsky, you've done well, he finally said. Sit tight, I'll be there in 2 minutes. He pulled the shift lever down into drive, but before accelerating, wiped a smudged fingerprint off the speedometer glass with a gloved hand. More dirt, he thought. Lewinsky, you still there? Yes, Chief? Lewinsky, what car did you have yesterday? Number 8228, the same one I always have. Why? Never mind. Now the author asks a great question. Apparently, Gary Westlake agrees with Lewinsky that she has a possible suspect in the Packers case, and it's because of the gun. Why? If you have an answer, and if you have figured out the mystery story, put that answer into the comment section below. And if you have not figured out the story, doesn't matter. I just hope you've had fun listening to the story, because I for sure did, reading it to you. Till next time, bye.